Most people who live in cities will walk less than 3 kilometers in one day. But these bar-headed geese can cover more than 1,600 kilometers in the same time. They can even fly for up to 17 hours without a break, flapping their wings the entire time. This stamina is kind of necessary for populations that spend the summer in China and Mongolia and the winter in India, which means crossing the world's highest mountain range, the Himalayas, home of Mount Everest.
Bar-headed geese get their name from the bars on the back of their head. Flying at heights of more than 24,000 feet requires a pretty specific set of skills, including specialized flight patterns and breathing at altitudes with very low oxygen. In a 2015 study, researchers found that the bar-headed geese's flight pattern was more of a roller coaster ride than a straight shot.
During the flight, the birds gain and lose altitude in a pattern experts believe helps them conserve energy. This makes the long journey possible. And for what? To get to a warmer place during the winter. These geese fly down to wetlands across India, even ones in the middle of India's largest cities.
This is the Basai Wetland in India's National Capital Region. In this region, 46 million people and hundreds of bird species live side by side. The Basai Wetland is just one of the spots where migratory birds hunker down for the winter. It's seen birds like common starlings, ducks, herons, and cormorants over the years. And organizations like BirdLife International have classified it as an important bird and biodiversity area, or IBA.
Researchers observed more than 128 bird species over a period of 9 months between 2015 and 2016. But since then, construction in the area has been on the rise, and the landscape is rapidly changing. One of the projects, the Dwarka Expressway, is expected to relieve some of the heavy traffic that Delhi and the National Capital Region is notorious for. But construction is also carving roads through the wetland. And in 2018, a construction and demolition waste plant replaced one corner of the wetland.
Birders have been vocal about the need to preserve this area for years, but they've had little success. Basai is not legally classified as a wetland, which means it does not fall under the protection of Indian regulations. If it were, under India's Wetland Conservation and Management Rules from 2017, any human intervention on the land would be regulated. Wetlands are internationally recognized as important biodiversity hotspots, but they're disappearing all over the world. Some estimates suggest we've lost 87% of our wetlands in the last 300 years, and it's largely due to human activities. It's a problem for everyone, but it's especially troubling for the 23% of India's 1,300 plus bird species that rely on these landscapes to survive.
Though many species have adapted to human landscapes, overall we're seeing a decline in bird populations worldwide. In 2020, an analysis of crowdsourced data uploaded to eBird, an online platform that allows birders to record their field observations, found that the population of 101 Indian bird species had declined in recent decades. And shrinking ecosystems like wetlands are suspected to be a key factor in this decline.
It doesn't take a lot of greenery or water to support wildlife. Even temporary puddles can bring in species that wouldn't normally be spotted in one area. This sewage spill attracts stilts, wagtails, and sandpipers within a matter of days. And as soon as it dries up, these birds disappeared. This construction site that's been on hold for years is home to over 8 species, including a family of francolins, laughing doves, hungry kingfishers, bank mynas, silverbills, green bee eaters, rock chats, and red-wattled lapwings. Hidden inside a manicured bush is a nest full of jungle babbler chicks. Humans walk by the nest all day without noticing that it's there. For this species, it's not just the parents that take care of the chicks. Other members of the flock help keep the chicks fed and growing too.
All this in the middle of a bustling concrete jungle. As parts of the world started locking down in 2020, people suddenly had a lot more time to observe their surroundings. Some considered this a sign that nature was healing in the absence of the bustling crowds of people. But were they there all along? Maybe we didn't notice them because some birds and animals are really good at camouflage. This useful trait can keep animals safe from predators and away from curious humans. The brown and gray tones of the gray francolin's feathers blend in seamlessly with its primary habitat of underbrush. They can easily be mistaken for moving ground, especially since they're fast on their feet. Odds are, when one is spotted, there is at least one more around.
While the gray francolin excels at blending in, there is one thing that can give it away. They're super loud, and they can be heard everywhere in India. The Indian thick-knees blending in strategy is a little different. Unlike the grey francolin, it stays very still. So still, a person might just walk by it. Similar to the grey francolin, its feathers are grey and brown.
Then there are birds like the red-wattled lapwing that just don't blend in. Mostly due to bright red flesh on their face and shrill calls at all times of day and night. In Hindi, the red-wattled lapwing is named after its call,
Tatera.
This unmistakable sound warns other bird species of incoming danger like kites, shikras, dogs, and humans. Red-wattled lapwings have good reason to be on high alert. They lay their eggs on the ground, which makes them particularly vulnerable in areas with high foot traffic, and they're physically incapable of perching on a tree. Their feet just aren't built for it. So they can be found standing guard from a rooftop and letting neighboring birds know when something is coming.
For most humans, pigeons are what we think of when we think about birds in cities. Most of us recognize rock pigeons, also known as common pigeons or feral pigeons. They were originally from Europe, North Africa, and Western Asia, but they can now be found on every continent except Antarctica. But this is just one species of pigeon. There are more than 300 known species in the Columbidae family of birds, which includes pigeons and doves. Around India's national capital region, there's the smaller laughing dove with its puffy cheeks, reddish coloring, and spots on its neck. There's also the collared dove, which, true to its name, has a black collar around its neck. Hidden in the trees, there's the best camouflage of the bunch, the yellow-footed green pigeon. They don't make as much noise as the other pigeons and doves, so that makes them extra hard to spot. But on closer observation, they have bright yellow feet and bright purple eyes. So while many of us may associate the word pigeon with pesky rock pigeons, the whole Columbidae family is quite big and quite diverse.
One thing that many city-dwelling birds have in common is the ability to live in or near human construction. Cattle egrets make themselves right at home near cattle. Though they generally roost in trees, they often spend the day on farms, following large grazing animals. As cows and buffaloes make their way through grasses or hyacinth, insects jump away, and that's when the cattle egrets close in. One study found that this feeding behavior was 3.6 times more effective for the cattle egrets than when egrets are on their own. And the cattle don't seem to mind, especially since cattle egrets will eat insects off their backs. Cattle egrets don't just take advantage of insects disturbed by cattle, they will also follow farmers using heavy machinery like tractors to find a feast. Other bird species will also nest close to humans, like these bank mynas who found holes in concrete under a highway. Common mynas and pigeons can build right on concrete. Even some spotted owlets live in buildings, though this pair have picked a nice tree cavity near multiple large apartment complexes. A 2007 study of these nocturnal birds found that spotted owlets tended to breed more successfully when they lived near humans, because they were more likely to find rodents to eat there. Some bird species don't have to work as hard for a meal, though. Sparrows, doves, mynas, and babblers flock to bird feeders set out by humans.
But big birds have big appetites. Black kites keep an eye out for the discarded meat, which they can find pretty easily around Delhi and National Capital Region's landfills. They have many landfills to choose from, and these waste sites are often the size of multi-story buildings. Bhandwari landfill on the border between Delhi and neighbouring state Haryana receives 1800 tons of municipal waste daily according to government records. Black kites can be seen circling above and occasionally swooping down. These birds are found across Asia, Europe, most of Australia, and many parts of Africa. In urban spaces like Delhi, studies suggest that they can easily be spotted in every locality. These aren't the only scavengers that make the most of landfills. Birders have even spotted Egyptian vultures around the National Capital Region's dump sites. These birds have distinct yellow faces. Like the black kites, Egyptian vultures can be found from Africa to India, but they are an endangered species, so they are much harder to spot.
Landfills now serve as a regular source of food for scavengers, and many of them shouldn't even be running anymore because the landfills around Delhi hit maximum capacity years ago. Trash from homes, hospitals, and hotels makes its way to these dump sites, which form a toxic mix of chemicals that can seep into groundwater and surrounding land and inhabitants like birds. So when a scavenger eats from landfills, it's not just getting the leftovers. It might accidentally ingest toxins too, like plastic, which is abundant at these sites. When birds and other animals ingest plastics, it can lead to malnutrition. Researchers still don't know the full extent to which plastic ingestion affects birds, but they have found that it leads to chemicals building up in their liver and fatty tissues. A close look at any green patch in the National Capital Region will show that it doesn't take much for a wide diversity of birds and other animals to thrive. This patch of land, surrounded by large apartment buildings, office complexes, and construction, is home to over 50 bird species. There are birds that are often found in grasses and bushes, like the tiny Ashiprenia and sparrows, Indian silverbills, and white-eyes. Flowering bushes attract purple sunbirds, who feed on the nectar.
During the peak of summer, when temperatures reach 45 degrees Celsius or 113 degrees Fahrenheit and above, some species like green bee-eaters and cattle egrets will hang around with their beaks wide open and their throats fanning. This serves as a cooling system since birds don't have sweat glands. It's around this time of the year, peak summer, that cattle egrets get ready for parenthood. Every year, they gather together in large colonies. These trees next to the pond are a great spot because the pond provides easy access to food and water during temperatures hitting 40 degrees Celsius every day. This yearly ritual is repeated by hundreds of egret pairs next to an under construction high-rise apartment. When egrets are ready to breed, their snowy white feathers turn bright orange and their beaks get gradients of purple, red, and yellow. Then it's time to build the nest and protect it from scheming neighbors waiting to steal twigs for their own nests. Once the eggs are laid, it can take over 3 weeks to hatch. Both parents keep an eye on the eggs till these mostly featherless chicks emerge. The chicks are always hungry for food and nest space. It then takes 2 weeks for them to start using their feet and another month for the wings to be ready to fly.
Many bird species also have chicks right before the monsoon. These seasonal rains come between June and September in the Delhi region, and with the rain comes an abundance of insects which insectivorous young birds can thrive on. Peafowl are one species that breed before the monsoon. They are India's national bird, world famous for their mating dance. A report on the state of India's birds found that while peafowl populations across the country have been growing in the last 25 years, other bird species have declined. Experts believe this population growth is in part thanks to the country's Wildlife Act, which makes it illegal to hunt or kill peafowl. As a result, they are a common sight in Delhi's National Capital Region and beyond. This little patch of water in the same sector as the sewage spill is home to white-breasted water hens and moorhens, and attracts other birds like white-breasted kingfishers and greater coucals. And in the trees there are gray hornbills, Asian koels, coppersmith barbets, rufous tree pies, and more. All of these birds exist within a delicate balance. Some feed on insects, others on fruit and seeds, and many are omnivorous. Then there are the birds of prey that eat other animals, including birds. In this micro-ecosystem, there are kites, barn owls, spotted owlets, and shikras, also known as little banded goshawks. These predators are about the size of an A4 sheet of paper, 26 to 30 centimeters long.
Shikra parents share the responsibility of watching over their eggs and young chicks. They usually lay around 4 eggs, which incubate for around 3 weeks. From a distance, it's hard to tell how many eggs the Shikra pair laid. But as these chicks grow, we start to identify more and more beaks. It's not long before they're fighting for nest space and starting to stretch their wings, even though they're missing some crucial feathers. After a meal, some of these chicks plop down with their claws sticking out of their nest and fight sleep. Soon they'll be finding food on their own and finding a new home for their own nests. Tucked away at the top of a tree and well defended by their parents, Shikra chicks are relatively safe from many predators. Red-wattled lapwings, however, lay their eggs on the ground since they are physically incapable of perching on a tree, which makes them vulnerable to snakes, mongooses, birds of prey, stray dogs, and even distracted humans. This lapwing pair is raising their young near a playground shared by nearly 1,000 households. It will be a while before these chicks can fly, so the parents keep a close watch and are vocal when danger comes too close. The little ones will tuck under their parents so that the predators can't see them from above. But sometimes even that isn't enough. Before long, there's only one chick left. And shortly after that, the second one is gone too.
While red-wattled lapwings use their call to warn, other species call for different reasons. Male Asian koels sit on treetops and branches hoping to attract a mate with their impressive and very loud song. Greater coucals, like koels, are also in the cuckoo family, but their call has much more bass. Greater coucals are monogamous, and they often duet with one another. Some studies suggest these duets help them mark their territory. Urban sounds are also interrupted by the squeaky toy sound of jungle babblers, the Jurassic Park-like shriek of the gray hornbill, and the hammer-on-metal sound of the coppersmith barbet. Some of these calls are social, some are warnings, and some are just looking for love. Oriental magpie robins have particularly elaborate calls. Researchers have identified more than 5 different types of calls used by these birds to mark territory, warn about danger nearby, and when they're getting ready to roost. Studies have even found that parts of the male oriental magpie robin's call changes depending on the location, much like the same language can have different dialects depending on the region.
All of this biodiversity is just within 1 square kilometer. And it may seem like a lot until it's compared to what can be found just a little outside the city. Even 1 hour away from Delhi's city center, there's a much higher density of different species. In the Najafgarh drain, on the outskirts of the city, there are grey herons, purple moorhens, cormorants, painted storks, and purple heron.
Even further out, around the Bindawas bird sanctuary, there are all 3 species of ibis present in India. Ibises flock around water bodies and wade through the shallows looking for food. There's the glossy ibis, which changes color in the sunlight, and the black-headed ibis. The red-naped ibis, with its distinct red warty skin on the top of its head, also ventures onto farmlands.
It's easier for these birds to survive in landscapes that haven't been too altered by humans. When humans start to lay down concrete, we cause water to dry up and force birds to travel farther to find food.
We don't make it easy for biodiversity to thrive around us, and yet, many species clearly manage to find ways around it.